Some More Good News Season 2 is all about people doing good through following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I'm Kate Chericello, and welcome to today's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world.
Today's guest is coming at us all the way from Japan, Marcie West. She is the Regional Operations Manager of the USO Pacific. For those who don't know, the USO is a United Services Organization. It's a nonprofit whose mission is to strengthen America's military service members by keeping them connected to family, home, and country throughout their service to the nation. How did we cross paths? Well, I have been blessed to be a part of the entertainment division of the USO since 2018. And due to the pandemic, we couldn't do live events. So the USO did a quick and wonderful job of creating virtual events. And in recent months, I have been able to teach fitness classes, because that is the other half of my life as a fitness professional, to the USO Japan, Guam, and others. And Marcie's passion for the USO is so apparent and was so apparent from our first Zoom meeting. So I knew she'd be a perfect guest for some more good news. So Marcie, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here. And you know, with all the help that you gave us during the holidays with the fitness classes, I had to say yes. So I'm
Well, it was my pleasure. And what a neat experience too, to interact with people from all over the world. So thank you.
Yeah.
So our 5 questions, you can answer them however you like, and we'll just dive in. The first question being simply, who are you and what do you do in your own words?
So Marcie, I am a proud Navy wife, which makes working for the USO even more special because our family personally benefited from the programs of the USO before I was employed with the USO. So it was a nice job to come here. I don't get to do to be honest with you, I don't get to do a lot of the really fun stuff. I help oversee and kind of advise when centers do some of their really great programs. But I'm not in charge of the personal delivery. But I will tell you, when you asked about this, if I could have any opportunity to talk about the great programs that are happening, I had to take it. I also help coordinate, like you mentioned, the programs from our headquarters when they are in the Pacific, in terms of connections with centers, basically, in terms of their program delivery. You know, the Pacific region for the USO is huge. It's 52% of the world's population. I mean, the world's space. We have Guam, Hawaii, South Korea, mainland Japan, and Okinawa. But my coworker Thomas actually does programs in the Philippines, Australia, Singapore, Thailand. And so we cover a lot of area, and it's kind of exciting to see where our footprint lands. But I love my job. I'm somebody who gets a lot of enjoyment from it. And in my professional life, I have always worked in the nonprofit field. And I didn't start out that way, but I realized, 25 years later, that's where I ended up. And it's nice to know that there's been a commitment my whole adult life.
So going with that, I'd love it if you'd elaborate more a little bit on that path. How did you get here? Did it have to do with being married to someone in the Navy, because of your love of nonprofit? I'd love to hear more about that.
So as a kid, there were 2 things I always wanted to do. I actually wanted to be an actress, and I did a lot of drama as a kid, and I was a drama and debate nerd, or I wanted to be a U.S. Senator. And, I think it all comes down to wanting to make a difference. I just wanted to make a difference. My husband wasn't actually in the military. He was sworn in on our 9th wedding anniversary. So we had a whole life as him as a civilian. But when he joined the military during the recession in 2010, we were one of the people that really needed it. And the military gave us a great adventure. And I also found, as we moved to different duty stations, the nonprofit field was one of the ones that was very accepting of the fact that we'll take you for the 1.5 to 3 years that you might be here. A lot of times corporations want you to come and they want you to commit to like your 20 years, even though nobody really does that. But there were a lot of times when I was going to interviews, they'd say, well, why did you come to Washington? Well, my husband's in the Navy. And then you get the head tilt where they say, oh, so how long are you going to be here? And so it's hard as a military spouse to get work. So the nonprofit field ended up giving that opportunity to me. And here in Japan, there's not as much opportunities for spouses because of the agreement we have with the Japanese government. So you either get a government job, a GS job, or you work in like the support field, or you work for the USO. And I was lucky to get this job 2 months after we moved here.
Wow. I definitely had no idea about how the interworkings of how that works when you're moving around so much. Wow.
It's hard. Last duty station, it took me 10 months to get any job, and it took about 1.5 years before I had one that was in my kind of career path. So, wow. And that's kind of normal, Kate, for military spouses, which is one of the reasons why I love what we do here, is that we allow spouses to make those connections, because sometimes they might not find a job here. So how do you find your community? And you in Okinawa, we have all branches here, but we can offer that support to Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Marine spouses together. There's no distinction. And I'm glad to be part of that.
Oh, that's wonderful. So now with the past year, I know there's some obvious ways how your world looks different, but how does it look different from pre-COVID to during this time? And what do you see staying, changes that have been positive, and what can you not wait to get back to a sense of normalcy, so to speak?
In terms of work, in 2019, I got a chance to travel to each of our areas. I was in Guam, mainland Japan, 2 trips to South Korea. Never made it to Hawaii just because of the way it happened. Being able to see the centers provide their programs face to face, there is a real impact to that. But one of the things I was excited about in 2020 is that because I had never made it to Hawaii, it was very hard. The virtual programs allowed me to participate in their virtual programs that they had. So sometimes I wake up at 2:30 in the morning to be part of the virtual programs, especially, with the show troupe and some with the What to Expect with Heidi Murkoff tour. Mm-hmm. So it offered a unique opportunity to be present in the programs they're doing there. I do think that virtual programs do have a place, Kate. One of the things we found with some of the MVP events that we've done that have an educational element is when we've partnered with USO Pacific. We have had a reach to Misawa, and I don't know. Have you been here?
I haven't been there yet. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I was talking to one of your coworkers, and I asked, "Do you go to Misawa?" She said, "No, it's just not on the route." Uh-huh. So the virtual programs have an opportunity to reach people that we just can't physically get there when you cover 52% of their surface. So I hope it stays.
Great. So you have very obviously been a part of a lot of goodness, and I would love to hear a story, 2 stories, however many you'd like, just about seeing goodness that the USO has done.
So one, like I mentioned before, I don't sometimes get to do a lot of program delivery, but we are on the NCAS Futema base. And we have a center here, and the field programs manager asked me if I wanted to come deliver cookies. They did the Grinch COVID that stole Christmas, and they had green cookies, and they went to all of the commands and handed them out. And to be able to be there and actually just help hand out cookies, it sounds silly, but actually to see where all of the oversight and the support we offer in our office, how it was helping actually deliver a little bit of holiday cheer to the service members. But I think the one that I did have a little bit of a part in is we have an overseas virtual that we started. It started as the Pacific, but we've expanded and included Europe. We've got a good partnership with them. And last month we read The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. And we had these discussion groups of spouses. There were enough that we broke out into different discussion groups. And I got an email back from one of the spouses that said she had actually struggled when she read the book because something about Beth was bothering her. And when we were in that discussion group, she said, they discussed the fact that Beth was likely on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And she went back and she realized the reason why it bothered her was because her son is on the spectrum. And then her perspective changed on this because she said, I think I understood a little bit better how his mind worked. And it was just this discussion, this book club, and this one spouse, but, I even have chills talking about it again. And, a lot of programs have numbers, but sometimes the programs that are smaller and even these virtual programs have an impact that we often don't hear those stories. And I appreciated that the spouse shared it. And I was glad that she was able to make that connection to her personal life from the book, but also to other spouses as they talked about it.
That says so much too, right? About you just never know what is going to impact someone. That one person, that just a whole different perspective because of that one event. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So one more question for you. Is there anything that you find yourself saying over and over again, whether it's to the people you work with there at the USO, to donors you might come across, to the military members and their families, any advice, anything that you just try to drive home, any Marcie-ism that you'd like to leave us with?
I pride myself on being authentic. And as we work through things, I want to try to be a sounding board for the area program leads and the center program leads. And I sometimes don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to help them work and find what it is to help them provide the best program that they can. But the thing I probably say the most is how much I truly appreciate the time that people are putting in. When you decide to work in the nonprofit world, you basically decide to live your job. It's not one that you really honestly clock in at 9 a.m. and clock out at 5 p.m. a week. It is 7:13 a.m. here. And I actually started about an hour earlier because there's just always so much to do. And I'm just grateful every day that I get to do it. And I get to do it with some of the best people I've ever met.
And that is why I'm so grateful that you gave me this time today, because I hope that more people can hear about what you're doing, what the USO are doing, and also just be more aware of how these people who are fighting for our country are living and being, changing places.
So I'm going to add one thing, Kate. If anybody's watching
Yes.
and want to help, go to volunteers.uso.org. We can use you. And we are actually, the USO is building a group of virtual volunteers. So if you want to help when Kate does a fitness program and help her with the chat box or something, you can do that. Or if you want to get involved in gaming, or if you'd like to participate in the Overseas Virtual Book Club, we need people to help us. So go ahead and visit that, and we have things for you to do.
Wonderful. Volunteers.uso.org.
Yep.
And I'll put that in our show notes too. Marcie, thank you so much. And yes, everyone go explore USO.org too, just to see there's such an array of programming that is done beyond when we think of USO and Bob Hope and all of that. There's so much that goes into it. So Marcie, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, Kate.
Follow me, Kate Chericello, at positively_Kate on Instagram for more. If you have good news that needs to be shared, please send me a message.